Welcome, everybody. We have Jane with us. Thank you so much, Jane, for joining our podcast.
Hey, everybody. My name's Jane Johnston. I'm a realtor with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun. I'm in the top 1% of realtors in North America. And I've been a realtor for 15 years. I came to it from teaching. And I got into the business because I had a terrible agent. And I thought it was really important that people be provided excellent service. And I'm here today because Ivy and I are trainers and coaches with Codebreaker Technologies.
Jane, my name is Dan. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'll be getting to know you along with our audience as we ask you questions and you answer them. The reason Ivy invited you on here, not only because she knows you and likes you, but because we like to give our listeners access to people that they might never come across in regular life. And by listening to you and your stories and the answers to the questions you have, they may hear something either for the first time or something they maybe have heard multiple times, but they may connect with you different. So it's more meaningful and it leads them to take some action. And our overarching principle is to help people live their best life. So we're going to jump right in with questions. Again, these questions may seem all over the map, but their one purpose is for people to get to know you and to help them through your experience and journey to help them live their best life. So first question, if I was a genie and I could grant you just one wish, what would be your wish? But here's the rules. You can't wish for more wishes, and you can't wish to become the genie or the wish giver that's cheating the system. So what would be the wish I could grant you?
I wish everybody had a little bit more emotional intelligence. I think the world would be a much kinder place if people came from a position of understanding one another without trying to influence each other.
That's a beautiful wish, actually, to really connect with somebody, because oftentimes when we're meeting people, we don't always build the trust and rapport, and then there's just this disconnect and misunderstanding. So I like that. What is a habit or belief that has shaped you to who you are today?
I think, for me, my life has always been a combination of being very physical and also intellectual, and they've battled each other my whole life. So what keeps me sane and grounded is what's allowed me to be where I am today. And that is that I exercise every morning, and it allows me to kind of be in the zone. And I found recently with all the restrictions regarding COVID, I haven't been able to exercise as I like, and I feel off balance. So I notice whenever I am in the zone, I'm working out regularly. I start the day afresh. And I think the other thing, so the second thing is really focusing on learning all the time, being a person who's taking in knowledge so that you're developing and never being satisfied with the status quo and just kind of always trying to improve where you are.
Ivy and I both are strong advocates for the same thing. So I'm not exactly sure of Ivy's recent situation with everything being shut down, but I know at one point we both are into like daily working out, right? And keeping our body fresh. And then also our mind stays sharp, right? By always learning. So whether it's, reading a book, listening to YouTube videos, doing whatever, I think it's really important for people to have like constant improvement and learning and keeping your mind sharp. So one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. And in that, obviously, they have a time machine and can travel back in time. So if you could travel back in time and you could visit your younger self and you could give your younger self some advice based on the wisdom and experience that you've now gained, what advice would you give your younger self, and why that advice?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because I have an 18-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. And I tell them, I feel like I'm living my life again through them. And I say stuff which sounds trite, I guess, to them, but I say everything is going to be okay. You don't have to make your magical life decision right now. And if you look at life as a pyramid with many steps, that you can choose a variety of different steps, you're going to end up in the same place and you're going to peak where you're meant to be. So just do what you love. Focus on what you like doing, go through and get that post-secondary institution, even if you want to go into the trades, because I think it gives you a sense of accomplishment. And then you can apply whatever you learn to whatever the next step is. And in the end, you're going to be a much happier person doing what you love.
Today, when I was sharing in a video, it was Steve Jobs' story, his speech about doing what you love, because at the end of the day, you don't know how much time you have on earth and you want to make the most of it. So that's awesome. And to go beyond that is, who do you wish to become? What kind of person, what is the type of person you want to be? I've been thinking about that lately. And speaking of that, I wanted to know who in your life has made the most influence and shaped you to who you are.
My parents, I'm going to say 3 of them. So my mom, my dad, and my stepmom are all leaders in their communities. We're all leaders in their communities. And they all loved what they did. And so I live on the West Coast, but I grew up in Toronto. And I specifically moved away because I wanted to see what I could do outside of their influence. But that being said, they all applied themselves, and I think they were all very interesting people. And so I want to just keep being interesting, and I want to keep being interested in life.
So speaking of
Yeah.
keeping it light, if you were sentenced to life in prison and the warden told you that you get to bring one book into your cell with you, so this is the only book you get for the rest of your life, what book would you bring with you and why that book?
Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. So I read it. It's a very thin little book. I read it when I was in university, maybe 19 years old. And the story is about Viktor Frankl's experience in a concentration camp during the Second World War. He was Jewish, obviously. And he, as a psychotherapist, he started to analyze what was going on around him. And what he realized was that we're all experiencing the same thing, but how we respond to it is our choice. And that is the epitome of emotional intelligence, I think, is that we really need to choose wisely how we respond. And I work in an industry where people are very emotional, buying and selling $500,000 to $1 million plus homes. And that amount of money brings out a lot of stress. And so just understanding, listening to from people's experiences and understanding, putting myself in their shoes and being empathetic. I think if I were to be in a prison, in a holding cell by myself, that would give me meaning. I would find some meaning in it.
Speaking of meaning, what brings you the most joy?
My family, but in terms of my work, I love being creative. So we just did this event with our clients called Home for the Holidays, because we were unable to allow them into our space. So we went to everybody's house and took a picture of them on their front porch, and they all dressed up. And I hired a lady photographer who's new to the city, who's my client. So she took the photos. So I introduced her. Like, if I can be creative in my marketing and solve a number of problems at the same time, then I feel really happy. I love doing that. And I love helping people.
Yes, you do. That is just one of your biggest strengths, actually, is because you come from that place of wanting to help somebody. People know that you genuinely care. So that transition, I know in your intro you talked about you had a different career before you went into real estate. What made you consider this transition?
I grew up in a family where people had regular jobs, like JOBs, where they were employed by somebody else. So I never really was introduced to the concept of entrepreneurship. And when I was buying and selling homes, I realized I was negotiating transactions. And I have a master's degree in education in leadership. And I thought, well, what if I applied everything that I'd learned? I was also like a legal secretary before, and I'd worked doing event management for a minister with the Ontario government, and I worked as a program manager, like all these things. Just all of a sudden I thought, if I apply all of them to real estate, I could do really well. So my first year, I hit the ball out of the park, rookie of the year.
So you mentioned that you got into real estate because you had a bad experience with an agent. So I don't need to hear about that experience, but I am curious of things that you hear in the industry that you want to protect other people from, right? So it's like advice that you're like, no, 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 don't take that advice, or that's not good advice. And instead, what's the good advice that you can offer them to overcome that advice?
I think always go with a local specialist. Go with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Don't go with the person who sells the most real estate or has the most ads. Go with the person who has integrity. I think come up with a list of questions that you want to ask. And some of those questions should be, how are they giving back to the community? What is their marketing plan? Are they marketing for a listing? Are they marketing to other realtors because the realtors bring in the buyers? Do they have good relationship with other realtors in the community? That's totally key. I don't think anybody asks that. And you need that for your negotiating. And then on the selling side, so that's as a buyer, you want to know, like, do they know the product that you're looking at? Are they familiar? If they're looking for a condo, are they familiar with what's happening with the condos? Are they familiar with issues in different areas? So overall knowledge. And then what else do they do other than real estate? Like, do they have a life? Because you have to connect with them on a personal level.
Oh, these are such good golden nuggets. I really like this. And for those of you listening who are shopping for a real estate agent, listen to that again. All right. What is one of the biggest lessons you learned in this year that surprised you?
You have to be adaptable. That, doing the same thing when the situation's changed and you're doing the same things you used to do, it won't work. So do your research, listen, get quiet and listen, and then act. That's probably the most important thing.
So if you think back to your life, obviously you've gained a lot of skills, but if we could just grant you a superpower, you'd be like one of the Marvel characters. What would be the superpower you'd want, and why would you choose that one?
I think it is my superpower, which is community, developing community. And because I think that it's essential for people to feel like they belong. I think it's essential for everybody's mental health, and it's essential for everybody's wealth as well. A happier community is a much more successful community, and it's a nice place to live. There's a lot less stress. So it would be creating community.
You get it right on the nail, because I had talked about stress management and participating in life, communicating, connecting with other people, socializing with your loved ones, but also with the people you interact with, say your neighbors, your gym friends, your coworkers. That all makes a huge difference in our mental health and how we manage our stress and anxiety. What is a question that we should have asked you that we didn't?
Is money the be all and end all? The answer is no. So as Ivy knows, there's 4 levels to wealth, but the final level, the first one is money. But the final one is figuring out your why and how you can give back. So, eWomen Network talks about giving first, sharing always. That's totally the why. Why are you here? And how can I help you?
Jane, I am also a licensed realtor in Virginia. And this is a common thing that people ask me. And I struggle to have a good answer. So I'm curious of your answer, which is, why do we even need realtors anymore? Because everybody is just listing online and everybody's searching online. And in the end, they only need a realtor because they've set up the system where they put a lockbox on the home that's usually not a combo lockbox, but a realtor access lockbox. And so they've kind of set up the system to force you into a realtor, where if they just easily made access to regular people, then regular people just do a search, say, I want to go see the house, go access it, right? And they can negotiate their own deals, and we cut out up to 6% of the transaction. So what is your answer to why are realtors still relevant nowadays?
Well, congratulations on getting 6%, because we get 3.5 divided by both sides. Okay, so because the house is one part of the process, finding the house is one part of the process. It's kind of like, why do you need to go to school when you have the internet? Because you're getting the perspective and the experience and the wisdom of the realtor, and they're guiding you through the process. There's whole bunch of issues, as I mentioned, that you should be asking about when you're interviewing a realtor. But a realtor is your guide, your coach, the person who's going to make sure the transaction goes through. Often what happens when people list by themselves and they put it on the market and the offer comes in, and I've seen this, people accept silly offers. Like in Canada, in BC in particular, when you write an offer, you usually have 2 weeks to remove your conditions and then it's firm. It's not like subject to an appraisal after that, like it would be in the US. So the realtor ensures that you have a binding contract. They ensure that the other side pushes through, and they often can negotiate harder than you can because they haven't bought into emotionally the buying or the selling of the property. So they can negotiate with the other agent without any emotional aspect, and that causes them to get better results. And I know that because I have clients who are willing to pay more, and I'm like, you don't have to pay more for that property, or you don't have to accept less for that property. And price is only one of 5 things in an offer. So you also look at what are the dates, what are included, what's excluded, what are the terms and conditions, and are there any unique aspects to that property that need to be investigated?
I consider myself a good negotiator, right? So I'm good. It's one of my selling points is I'm good at negotiating price for people. With that said, for most people, they're not good negotiators, and the incentive is for the realtors to just work out a deal because their piece of it, in your case in Canada, is only 3.5%, right? So you do the math, to drop big numbers is a very small difference to the realtor in the negotiation part of it, right? So they're more inclined for 2 realtors to get together and go, this is not to say they're saying this, but they know in their heads, like the difference is hundreds of dollars, right? But it talks about tens of thousands for the buyer and seller in this transaction to go up, or for the seller to come down. So at any rate, I am curious. So as the person helping negotiate, either the buyer or the seller in the transaction, how do you express that, like, you care so much about their number when it impacts you so little?
It's funny you say that because I don't know any realtor who, once they know what the commission is, even thinks about that when they're negotiating. They're totally tied into what the results are. Here's the truth. When a transaction doesn't go well, the realtor doesn't think, oh crap, I lost $10,000. The realtor's like, we didn't win. They've bought in. If you're working with a great realtor, they've bought in with you. And also, if you're working with a great realtor, they should be making good money. And they're more focused on the process than they are about earning the money. So if I am working with somebody who's transactionally based, I could tell you right now, we're not going to get along, because my values are about community and caring and doing the right thing. And if I'm working with somebody who only cares about the money, then that person needs to go and find themselves another realtor. Because when they say to me, well, and I've had this happen. So we listed a property, we got an accepted offer within, I would say 12 hours. And the buyer, who was a high blueprint, said to me, so are you going to reduce your commission? And I said, the reason why you got the great offer in 12 hours is because I'm a great realtor and I did a lot of marketing before it even went to the MLS. And then the transaction fell apart, and it was 2 weeks later. So now 2 weeks on the market, people are wondering why it hasn't sold, because all they see is that it's still on the market and it hasn't got a pending or sold on it. And we negotiate another offer, and I get him the same price in a fast market where 2 weeks is a long time. And he goes, you know what? You've really earned your money. So sometimes you earn the money for a little amount of work. Sometimes you earn it for a lot of work. What we're getting paid is on the average of everything that we're doing.
I like your shares. You're such full wisdom, and you really, really know your zone of genius. When you're wearing the real estate hat and you're in your flow, can you describe what that looks like?
You know what? I think when I'm in my zone of genius, I'm witty. I like to have fun with my clients. This weekend, when I was doing the photography with of the people at home with my photographer, uh, I really felt like I had really accomplished a lot with these 21 families that reached, because uh, not everybody had the same home, but they had the home that was right for them. So there's no cookie cutter approach. And Dan will tell you, like, it's everybody has a different story, and you have to understand what that story is and then help people reach what their ideal goal is. And I think with the empathy and the emotional intelligence, it gets easier and easier with practice, but you're always learning.
So the ideal goal we have for this podcast is to help people live their best life. So if you could give just one piece of advice to help our listeners, what would be that advice for living their best life?
Find out what your passion is, whether it be through your work or be through something you do extracurricularly, but do things that feed your soul, and you'll just be a much happier person.
I agree with you about that, because when you do what you love and love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, and that you can feel that you can give your time and energy. That is really when you're in the flow, because you lose track of time altogether. And when you mentioned earlier about when you do your exercise, I wanted to say this earlier, it's a keystone habit. It's like this. I wake up, like Dan and I, we have our morning routines. When we get into our flow of our morning routines, we set up our day to be a lot more successful. So when you get where you feel like your love tank, your energy tank is full, your emotional EQ is up there, and you feel fulfilled, you show up so differently and so much more powerfully. And I think that you help your clients do that as a real estate agent, even though that's the hat you wear, but really you do show up and show people what it means to care about each other in a community, what it means to value someone else's perspective, what it means to understand their story, live in their perspective so you can really serve them. I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Even if people don't live where you live, but they would like to get in touch with you, maybe they just want advice. Like some of the questions I asked are like, you know, I live in the States or I live somewhere else, and I just am curious of your opinion on this topic. And maybe it's related to real estate, maybe it's just related to life. What's the best way for people to reach out and contact you?
They can go to briarhillgroup.com, BRIARHILL group.com, or they can email me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com, or they can call me at 250-744-0775. And if they want to know what it's like to live on the island, they can go to my website, vancouverislandtime.com.
Thank you so much, Jane, for your time. We loved bringing you on our podcast and sharing some of your golden nuggets.